President Donald Trump made a live appearance on X Spaces last night after the second attempt on his life by a gunman in 2 months.
Breaking news, an attempted assassination on Donald Trump at a campaign rally.
Donald Trump has been targeted in a second apparent assassination attempt.
In the conversation, which was largely focused on cryptocurrency, he made 2 big revelations about the 2024 presidential race.
There are a couple of pretty strange things going on there.
In this video, we're going to take a look at those 2 big revelations and what it tells us about the upcoming election. We're going to dig into the remarkable discovery made by investigative journalist Matt Taibbi about Ryan Routh, the second shooter. Not only that, the mainstream media seems to have largely missed a huge revelation about Kamala Harris's collusion with Google. And we're going to have a closer look at the allegations that the ABC debate between Trump and Kamala was actually rigged. So before it all gets chucked down the Democrat memory hole, before they try and turn the page,
what are we going to do? We're going to turn the page.
Let's jump right into it. The second assassination attempt on Trump occurred this Sunday, September 15th at 3 p.m. whilst he was playing golf at his West Palm Beach club in Florida, just 2 months following the first assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. The shooter, Ryan Routh, though formerly sympathetic to Trump, now a hardline never-Trumper, voting in Democrat primaries earlier this year for Biden and making 19 donations to Act Blue, a Democrat political action committee. He has a record of zealous support for Ukraine, supporting the neo-Nazi-linked Azov battalion, and even went to Ukraine to help their recruiting efforts. He's best summarized by friend of the show, Mike Benz.
This dude is like the Forrest Gump of CIA paramilitary activity.
But here is something journalist Matt Taibbi uncovered that I found particularly interesting. Matt Taibbi dug into all the Democrat mailers and literature, comparing their language and rhetoric with the tweets of Ryan Routh.
He tweets at Biden, at POTUS, your campaign should be called something like CADAF, Keep America Democratic and Free. Democracy is on the ballot and we cannot lose. We cannot afford to fail. But democracy is on the ballot. Even we cannot lose, which I didn't highlight there. We cannot afford to fail and the world is counting on us. They're all like very common Democratic Party talking points that you see in mailers. So this is from the DLC's mailers. You see democracy on the ballot. Everyone's heard that a gazillion times.
Democrats constantly tell us how much Trump's rhetoric is to blame for everything. As Newsweek reported in 2023, Trump supporters highly likely to try to kill people in 2024. Well, how did that turn out? Dems say that Trump's rhetoric was inspiring the far right. Well, if that's the case, then has their rhetoric inspired the 2 assassination attempts on Trump?
Does one of us have to come out alive?
Look, are they a threat to democracy? Yes. Are they going to take our rights away? Yes. Are they going to put people's lives in danger? Yes.
We have to defeat a person who is a threat to our democracy of the kind that we have not seen.
He wants to be a dictator on day one.
Trump is a threat to this nation.
Well, Trump certainly thinks so. Yesterday, he published this 50-long list of examples of Democrat rhetoric he thinks inspired the shooters. As the Telegraph reported, Donald Trump blames assassination attempt on Kamala Harris's rhetoric. Even an FBI counterterrorism expert on CNN thinks it's because of Democrat language.
I would think we're going to find that this guy's extremely politically motivated and that he probably was spurred on by much of the political diatribes that are going on these days, talking about Trump, equating him to Hitler and things like that. So I don't think this is the last we'll see of crazies out there trying to do this.
Of course, there are many examples of this.
The dehumanizing rhetoric of Adolf Hitler is once again alive and well on a national political stage.
However, even after the shooting on Trump, MSNBC hosts asked Trump to tone it down, implying it was his own fault. Right, so the same channel who said this about Trump.
And right now, I feel like MAGA in general, they are threats to us domestically.
He is destructive to our democracy, and he has to be eliminated.
Draw similarities between Mussolini and Hitler. The difference, though, I think makes Donald Trump even more dangerous, and that is he has no philosophy he believes in.
Assassination attempts on Trump are now so common, the Dems have become quite blasé in responding. The normally active Obama didn't bother making a statement, rather just retweeting Kamala Harris's statement. As for Hillary Clinton, well, she just cracked on as per.
Sadly, the press is still not able to cover Trump the way that they should. They careen from one outrage to the next. What was outrageous 3 days ago is no longer on the front pages, even though it threatens the physical safety of so many people. And I don't understand why it's so difficult for the press to have a consistent narrative about how dangerous Trump is, his desire to be a dictator, at least on day one, and to be outraged by what he represents.
Whilst Hillary seems to continue her rhetoric unabashed, Trump had this to say about Joe Biden last night.
It was very nice today. He called up to make sure I was okay, but he couldn't have been nicer.
And here is the first big revelation from the X Spaces conversation with Trump. He believes the Democrat establishment's ousting of President Biden from the ballot was the first coup of an American president.
If you think of it, that was an overthrow of a president. He won. He had 14 million votes. He had no votes, but still he had the right to run. And they literally, it was a coup in the truest sense. This was the first coup of an American president.
It's almost as if Trump is standing up for Biden against the bullies of the Democrat establishment. But was it a coup? Did Pelosi let slip what actually happened before Kamala was installed as the new nominee?
Talk to him is my only question. What I have to do.
Right.
He made the decision.
Well, this is what Biden said back in August. Biden says, ruthless Pelosi did what she had to do in ousting me. Is Biden now on the outside of the Democrat establishment? Is that why he felt comfortable wearing a Trump hat last week?
There you go.
Was this the mask slipping? After all, if Trump was literally Hitler, I mean literally, Biden wouldn't be putting on a swastika as a joke. So maybe Trump is not literally Hitler after all. But why the change? Has Biden now found something in common with Trump, being on the receiving end of a Democratic establishment shunning? Before we get into the second big revelation from Trump's interview, let's see how the mainstream media have covered the second assassination attempt. As already discussed, the mainstream media went straight back into the media bias after the shooting, showing a clear media bias over Trump's second assassination attempt. Ground News shows that even the story of DeSantis saying Florida will conduct its own investigation of the assassination attempt shows only 5% of left-leaning outlets are covering this story. That's in contrast with 90% of right-leaning outlets covering the same story. A huge media bias. Again, here's more about Ground News now. Let's look at how the media covered the debate. For example, left-leaning outlet Vanity Fair ran this headline: Kamala Harris made Donald Trump look silly and small at the 2024 debate, showing a bias in favor of Kamala Harris. Now let's look at Ground News to see how the rest of the media is covering it. We specifically asked them to partner with us because their app and website has allowed me and my team to quickly analyze media bias on any story in the news cycle. Hundreds of articles published on the Harris-Trump presidential debate, and we can access every single one on Ground News, with context on each source. At the time I'm looking at this now, I can see that media across the spectrum is covering the debate, but with slightly more from the left. To contrast the previous headlines, right-leaning outlet Just the News went with Trump declares victory, a starkly different narrative to the previous left-leaning outlet Vanity Fair. Seeing all sides, regardless of political lean, is important in making informed decisions and having more productive cross-aisle conversations, especially coming up to the election in November, which is why I appreciate that you can follow not only breaking news on each candidate and key issues, but also blind spot stories that are disproportionately covered. I really believe in what Ground News is doing, and I encourage you to check it out by scanning this QR code or go to ground.news/Winston. If you subscribe through my link, you'll save 40% off unlimited access. Ground News is subscriber funded, and by supporting my sponsors, you're supporting this show too. Now let's get into the second big revelation from last night.
The father went out and got the biggest lawyer in the state of Pennsylvania, which is pretty strange, about the father of the shooter we're talking about in Butler, the first one. And that's pretty strange. There are a couple of pretty strange things going on there.
And he's right. It's been 2 months since the first assassination attempt, and the world's attention has moved on rather speedily. The FBI's last update on this came July 15th, 2 days after the shooting. We've probably had more new revelations about Lee Harvey Oswald and John Wilkes Booth in the same time. Are the establishment trying to memory hole it?
Turn the page!
Friend of the show, Ashley Rinsberg, thinks as much. As he wrote in Unheard, in this case, it very much is for lack of trying that we have little new information about the assassination attempt in Butler, and the American press has largely moved on from the story. We have seen virtually no journalistic task forces, the type that were assembled by virtually every newsroom to pursue mostly false allegations about Trump's ties to Russia, and no searing investigations into the Secret Service. The media, not wanting to paint Trump as a victim or a near martyr, has found new things to talk about. Rinsberg is right. The media don't even like naming the shooter.
The last shooter in Pennsylvania, I don't want to say his name.
And why might that be?
In which the very fact of an assassination, a constitutional moment, will be used for political purposes.
Chuck it in the Democrat memory hole.
Turn the page!
Speaking of which, you remember Google conspiring to memory hole the first assassination attempt? Well, it turns out this was no coincidence, as undercover journalist James O'Keefe discovered via a Google employee.
Google was essentially promoting through its ads rhetoric that was very pro-Kamala, but it's you go to Google, they're reorienting the search engine such that Kamala is more, favored.
But the Google-Kamala collusion runs deeper still. It turns out a Google lawyer helped to prep Kamala for the ABC debate with Trump. Lawyer defending Google in DOJ case is prepping Harris for debate is conflict of interest. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan investigates. Jordan went on to cite a Fox News digital report that revealed that the lead attorney defending Google in the U.S. versus Google LLC, a high-profile antitrust case led by the Justice Department, was simultaneously advising and prepping Harris, the sitting vice president, for the debate against Trump. But Kamala's ties with Google run deeper still. They were the fourth largest donor in her 2020 campaign. And in this election cycle, Google execs are hosting her fundraisers. But you might be thinking, why is this relationship between Google and Kamala so important? Well, this is what Professor Robert Epstein said to Joe Rogan.
And so what they do is they use search suggestions to shift people's thinking about anything. It's not just about candidates either. It's about anything. And we've shown in controlled experiments that by manipulating search suggestions, you can turn a 50-50 split among undecided voters into a 90-10 split, with no one having the slightest idea that they have been manipulated.
Furthermore, a CNN analyst recently said this about how close the race is.
That race has been consistently so tight, it's well within a point. Whoever wins Pennsylvania, Jessica, my guess is going to be the next president of the United States. And at this particular point, that state is way too close to call.
It's close, and it's not just Google colluding with the Harris campaign. A story has been circulating that the Trump-Kamala ABC debate was in fact rigged. An apparent ABC whistleblower affidavit emerged, signed by a notary and sent to Congress. To forge such a document would be a felony. It was notarized on September 9th, the day before the debate, and makes claims that Kamala was to have a bigger podium than Trump. She would not be fact-checked, but Trump would be, and the Harris campaign would also provide questions to the moderators beforehand. Here is what Bill Ackman said about it. ABC and Robert Iger should directly address the specific accusations of the whistleblower, and Iger Disney should launch a full investigation. Not surprisingly, there has been no denial from the two ABC moderators, just silence. It is not yet clear whether the affidavit is authenticated, and the mainstream media have carefully avoided the whole story. But if proved to be true, it would no doubt be memory holed again pretty quickly. So whilst Trump has survived 2 assassination attempts, Kamala has survived 2 short interviews.
Next question, please. That's it? That's it.
If there are no teleprompters or agreed upon questions, things tend to go a tad wobbly.
How are you feeling about Pennsylvania?
I am feeling very good about Pennsylvania because there are a lot of people in Pennsylvania who deserve to be seen and heard. That's why I'm here in Johnstown. And I will be continuing to travel around the state.
And if you don't think American politics can get any crazier, well, you've not been paying attention. Here's what political commentator Dan Bongino said after the first shooting.
You think this is the last incident, you're out of your mind.
Can Trump actually win, or even make it alive to the election in November? What's the next thing that will be shoved down the great Democrat memory hole? We'll have to wait and see. They, no doubt, will try and turn the page.
Turn the page!
But we will remember. If you want to see more now, watch this video here and subscribe to see more topics, more guests that you want to hear from and about. That's all from me, but until next time, be well.